Open a blank project and the number of choices can feel ridiculous. Tempo, drums, bass, chords, samples, effects, structure. Every path is open, so nothing feels obvious. The way out is not another plugin. It is a sequence. In this video, we are going to make one complete beat from an empty session to an exported stereo file. We will build a strong drum skeleton, connect the bass to it, add harmony and a memorable motif, choose sounds by role, create variation, arrange the loop, make a rough mix, and run a final quality control pass. The target is not a genre-perfect masterpiece. The target is a track with a clear pulse, a beginning, development, an ending, and enough headroom to play cleanly. Give yourself one constraint before you start. Finish this version with the sounds you have. You can replace anything later, but only after the arrangement exists. That rule turns browsing into decision-making. If you learn how to make beats as a repeatable process, the blank project stops being an empty room. It becomes a checklist. Start by making the session easy to understand. Save the project immediately with a useful name and create a dedicated project folder so recordings, samples, and exports stay together. Set a tempo that makes you want to move, but treat it as a starting point, not a contract. Turn on the metronome and create a short workspace. 4 or 8 bars is enough. Add tracks for drums, bass, chords, melody, and one optional texture. Name them now and assign simple colors. This takes less than a minute and prevents a pile of anonymous tracks later. If your DAW has both a clip view and a linear arrangement, use the loop-based view for exploration and the timeline for the finished structure. Ableton Live is one documented example. Its session view supports clip launching, and its arrangement view is the linear song timeline. Other programs use different names, but the idea is the same. Keep the master output free of limiters while you build. Pull your monitor level down to a comfortable volume. Now loop the workspace and ask one useful question. What is the smallest idea that can carry the track? We're going to answer that with drums. Build the drum skeleton with only the essential voices. Start with a kick that marks the main weight, a snare or clap that defines the backbeat, and a closed hat or shaker that shows the subdivision. Do not begin with fills, percussion stacks, and 5 layers. A simple pattern makes the groove readable. Program 1 or 2 bars, then listen without looking at the grid. Can you nod to it? Can you tell where beat 1 is? If the answer is no, change the rhythm before changing the sound. The kick does not have to hit on every strong beat, and the snare does not have to follow one genre template, but each event should have a reason. Try subtracting one kick and notice whether the remaining space creates more pull. Try moving a hat off the obvious subdivision and listen for momentum. In a documented step sequencer example, Logic Pro can create both drum patterns and pitched instrument patterns, but the same principle applies whether you click steps, draw MIDI notes, finger drum, or record audio. At this stage, the job is a clear rhythmic sentence, an opening, a response, and a point where the loop wants to begin again. Once the skeleton works, shape the feel. MIDI notes can carry pitch, position, length, and velocity. Velocity is performance data. The instrument decides whether it changes volume, timbre, or both. That is why setting every hat to a random number is not automatically human. Create an accent hierarchy instead. Choose the hats that should lead the phrase, lower the supporting hits, and make ghost notes genuinely quieter. Then examine timing. Quantization can align notes to a rhythmic grid, but 100% correction is only one option. Keep the kick and snare anchors stable, then move selected hats or percussion a little earlier or later. Use your ears at the track's actual tempo. Ableton's groove system is a documented example of timing and velocity information being applied together, and its amount can be adjusted non-destructively before committing. Your DAW may call this swing, groove, shuffle, or quantize strength. Whatever the label, compare the adjusted pattern with the original at equal loudness. Add one small end-of-phrase change, perhaps an open hat, a missing kick, or a short fill. The goal is organized variation, not constant surprise. Now write bass as part of the rhythm section, not as a separate decoration. Begin with the root note of your tonal center or chord, but let the kick pattern tell you when notes should begin. Bass and kick can hit together for one strong impact, alternate to create conversation, or overlap selectively for sustained weight. None of those is always correct. Start with the simplest version, one bass note per important harmonic moment. Match note lengths to the groove. Short notes can leave air around the kick, longer notes can glue a section together. If the low end feels cloudy, do not immediately add sidechain compression. First check the notes, octaves, envelopes, and rhythm. A bass sound with a long release may keep ringing into the next kick even when the MIDI note looks short. Shorten the instrument envelope or edit the audio tail and listen again. Keep the part playable and repeatable. Then introduce one approach note, octave jump, or pickup near the end of the phrase. Solo the bass only long enough to fix obvious problems, then judge it with the drums. The question is not whether the bass sounds impressive alone. The question is whether kick and bass create one confident engine. With the engine moving, add chords or another harmonic layer. You do not need advanced theory to begin. Choose a key or tonal center, then build a small set of notes that supports the mood. Start with triads or even two-note shapes. The spacing matters as much as the chord name. If the bass already owns the lowest octave, move the chord voicing higher so the parts do not fight for the same space. Decide the harmonic rhythm, how often the chord changes. A chord every bar feels different from one chord held for 4 bars, even when the notes are identical. Try one progression, loop it with the drums and bass, and listen for tension and release. If a note sounds wrong, move one voice by a small step before replacing the entire chord. Scale highlighting in a MIDI editor can be a useful documented aid, but it is a guide, not proof that every highlighted note fits every moment. Reduce the chord part until it supports rather than crowds. Then create a second voicing for a later section. Remove the lowest chord note, invert one chord, or change the rhythm. That gives the arrangement contrast without requiring a new song. The melody should make the beat easier to remember, not harder to mix. Begin with a motif, a short rhythmic and melodic idea that can return. Hum something over the loop before you draw notes. If you can sing the contour after one listen, you probably have usable material. Record or program that phrase, then trim it to its strongest shape. Leave rests. A melody with space lets the drums speak and leaves room for a vocalist or lead instrument later. Repeat the motif, but change one thing on the final pass: the last note, the rhythm, the octave, or the answer phrase. Keep the number of active ideas under control. If the chords already have a busy rhythm, the melody can use longer notes. If the harmony is static, a more active motif may supply movement. Watch the register. A melody and chord voicing that occupy the same octave can blur even when the notes are technically compatible. Move the melody higher, simplify the chord, or choose a thinner sound. Finally, mute the melody. If the beat collapses, the rhythm section may still need work. If the beat survives and the motif adds identity when it returns, the melody is doing its job. Sound selection is arrangement in miniature. Every sound should have a role: weight, attack, width, texture, rhythm, or focus. Before adding an effect, describe what is missing. If the kick lacks a clear attack, choose a kick with the right transient or add one focused layer. If the chords fill every octave, pick a narrower patch before reaching for a complicated equalizer chain. Judge sounds in context and at matched loudness, because louder options often seem better for the wrong reason. Avoid endless browsing by setting a limit, audition 5 candidates, choose the best fit, and keep moving. Layer only when the layers contribute different functions. Two nearly identical snares often create phase problems or simply sound louder. A body layer and a short attack layer are easier to justify. Keep stereo width away from information that must anchor the center, especially the deepest bass. Use ambience deliberately. A short room can play sounds in one environment. A longer reverb can create scale but also consume space. Route several sounds to one shared ambience when you want cohesion. Then save or freeze the decision. The goal is a small cast of sounds that reads clearly, not a crowded catalogue demo. Variation keeps repetition meaningful. Make 3 levels of change. First, micro variation inside the loop. Velocity movement, a missing hat, a bass pickup, or a tiny melodic answer. Second, phrase variation every 4 or 8 bars. A fill, crash, reverse texture, chord inversion, or drum dropout. Third, section variation. Instruments enter, leave, or change register. Build these changes from the material you already have. Copy the main loop to a variation lane, label it, and alter only a few events. This preserves the groove while making the transition audible. Use automation when a continuous motion serves the section, opening a filter, increasing reverb, or changing volume into a break. Keep automation reproducible and purposeful. A transition should point toward a destination. A riser with no change afterward is just noise. Try the stronger tool first, silence. Remove the kick for half a bar before the drop, mute the chords for one phrase, or let the melody answer by itself. Then add a fill only if the gap needs direction. When every bar contains a special event, none of them feels special. Reserve the biggest change for the most important arrival. Now turn the loop into a timeline. Duplicate the core material across enough space to hear a full track, then create sections by subtraction before you add anything new. A practical starting shape is intro, main section, contrast or break, return, and outro. The exact lengths depend on genre and energy, so listen instead of copying a fixed bar count. In the intro, reveal enough information to establish the world without giving away the full impact. In the first main section, let the kick and bass engine arrive. For contrast, remove a major layer, change the chord voicing, or move the melody to a different register. On the return, restore the strongest version and add one earned variation. Use arrangement markers with plain names so you can navigate quickly. Zoom out and inspect density. If every track is a solid block from beginning to end, the energy cannot breathe. Then listen from the start without touching the mouse. Mark the moment where attention drops. Fix that moment with a structural decision. Remove, shorten, move, or replace a section before adding more effects. The arrangement is finished when each section has a job, and the transitions make the next event feel intentional. The rough mix is a clarity pass, not a mastering contest. Save a new version, pull all channel levels down if the master is crowded, and begin with faders and pan. Balance the drums, bass, harmony, melody, and texture at a comfortable monitoring level. Apple describes mixing in general terms as balancing parts and blending them into a cohesive whole. That definition is a useful priority. Process only after the balance reveals a problem. Use equalization to remove an unnecessary overlap or shape tone, not to make every track look active. Use compression when the dynamic range or envelope needs control, not by habit. Check the kick and bass together in mono. Listen quietly. Can you still identify the pulse and focal idea? Compare your mix with a commercially released reference in a similar style, but turn the reference down to a comparable loudness. Otherwise, loudness will disguise balance differences. Leave room below digital full scale on the stereo output and avoid clipping the export. Then test headphones, speakers, and one small device if available. Write down the single biggest translation problem and fix that first. A rough mix succeeds when the musical hierarchy survives outside your studio. Before export, run the track like a pilot checklist. Confirm the arrangement starts cleanly, the ending is intentional, no clip or note is cut off, no track is accidentally soloed, and the stereo output does not clip. Listen through once from beginning to end without editing. Then set the export range to include the complete song and any natural reverb tail. Export a lossless stereo master at the project's native sample rate and a sensible bit depth for archiving or later mastering. If the file is headed directly to YouTube video, YouTube's current upload guidance recommends an MP4 container with H.264 video and AACLC or Opus audio at 48 kHz. Video should be progressive and use the same frame rate as the source. Those are delivery settings, not a reason to replace your high-quality audio master. Re-import the exported file into a new track or play it in another application. Check the first second, the loudest section, the transition into the final section, and the ending. Name the file clearly with title and version. Then write one note about what you would improve next time. That final reflection closes the loop. You now know how to make beats from a blank project, constrain, build, relate, vary, arrange, balance, verify, and finish.